The UK has a very diverse mix of generation. It still has a very little amount of coal. It has a lot of gas-fired generation. But now around half of the electricity in the UK is supplied by low-carbon generation. That includes nuclear, hydro, wind and solar and biomass. So together, low-carbon energy sources are providing a lot of the energy, but it needs to increase. In a country like the UK, we should be aiming to completely decarbonise electricity generation over the next few decades, which means switching to more nuclear and more renewables. There is a target in the UK to phase out coal generation by 2025, but in fact we're seeing that happen already. We're seeing many days through the year when coal generation isn't used. It's the last choice in the generation mix, and it's increasingly becoming a very small fraction of our generation. As we phase out coal in the UK, we've increased all other sources of energy. So we've mostly seen a switch from coal to gas, but we have seen some increases in renewables, and we plan to increase in the UK nuclear generation. So there's a new plant at Hinkley Point C that is due to start construction next year, and several other plants are in planning and should be built in the next decade. Overall, there is a positive feeling about nuclear energy in the UK. A majority of people support it compared to those who don't support it. One of the interesting things is we see some of the strongest support in areas near nuclear power stations. People who live near nuclear power stations are often amongst the best informed people. They know about nuclear power, and when they find out about the energy source, they find out about the benefits, not only large-scale benefits such as clean generation, but also the economic and social benefits to communities through providing jobs and providing investment. We see local communities supporting nuclear energy.
Well, I feel like it does provide a lot of opportunities for people and the surrounding area, including Sizewell and Plaiston, even further. Like a lot of my dad works there, and he has a lot of friends who come from maybe like an hour's driving away to work, so it opens up lots of opportunities. Well, it's a stable electricity source for now, because obviously all fossil fuels are running low, and for now it is a energy that we can use until we find renewable energy. Well, we have a lot of visitors come here and also see the visitor centre at this power station, so that also brings customers in for us. So we have good business from the beach and also the power station. So I think it's quite good. It can be a bit of a tourist attraction. People love taking photographs of it, and yeah.
France, or the content of CO2 per megawatt hour is so low. 80 general for France, all producers counted, and EDF itself with our because we have mainly nuclear, hydro and renewable, we reach with very low level of 20 grams. But in addition to this aspect of eco-friendly, I would also like to focus on the fact that, for example, the existing nuclear, or for nuclear basically, when you look at the cost, you have more or less 60% for capital costs, and let's say 20% operation and maintenance cost, and 20% for fuel. And what is very important, the variable cost, is only the uranium basically that we have to buy outside, and this represents 5%. So meaning, thanks to nuclear, you have a very high level of guarantee in terms of stability of your price. Because even if uranium tomorrow, let's suppose the countries selling uranium, they decide to double, triple and so on, well, this is 5%. It's not going to change the economy and the competitiveness of nuclear. When you look, for example, a gas power plant, the gas portion, the fuel portion is 70–75%, and the capital cost and O&M costs are much lower. So let's suppose there is a big international crisis in Middle East or somewhere else. If they decide to double or triple the price of gas, immediately you see that your price will change. So that's why also the French government and the people are conscious about the fact that thanks to nuclear, everything is produced in France, except, I may say, uranium, but we have to buy abroad, but in stable countries, Canada, Australia, for example, Nigeria, and so on. And we have this big guarantee on the stability, I may say, of the cost and so price of energy for the customers. Another important point also, the French government has decided that there will be no more thermal plants, whether gas or coal, built in France, and he required to close by 2022 the last coal plants. So based on this EDF, our strategy, what we propose to the government is, of course, to develop renewable energy much more, because more and more competitive, especially solar. We are going to develop a 30 gigawatt solar plan for the 10 coming years in France. And nuclear, because nuclear is safe, because we consider nuclear can go to 50 years, because nuclear cost right now is very, very competitive, and because also, we have to balance intermittency of wind or solar generation by some base load. At night or when no wind, you need electricity. So we consider that nuclear is the perfect match with the renewable in the French energy mix, which will reach carbon neutrality.
We definitely have a great knowledge and experience in the nuclear sector, and we can now export as we did in the past. Nuclear industry, I think it's one of the main pillars of the country, with agriculture, tourism, and also with planes construction. So it's a big asset of the company, and it has brought wealth to the country, and still it can continue to bring wealth to the country, I think. It has brought competitiveness, and because with this low price of electricity, and it has helped many industry to set in France and to develop in France. And also it has helped us to, and it still helps us to have good price for electricity. The fact is that for public acceptance, but we are talking about public acceptance. For public acceptance, the population needs to know the rules and to know that we have strong regulations, and the operators, nuclear operator, needs to be transparent and to communicate about the rules first, but about the results also. Results in terms of economy, and results in terms of safety, and results about environment impact, and to compare our results with other countries' results. And it's still affordable. Currently, for instance, the difference between the electricity price in France and in Germany, it's something like 20% lower price here than in Germany. So yes, it's affordable, it's reliable. Yes, we have everyday electricity with no cut and for years, and safe. We have no accident, and that's the fact that EDF has proven for a long time that he's a serious operator and doing its best to drive his units every day safely and constantly with by paying respect to the highest standards.
Canada, we're fortunate. We have a long history of successful, safe, reliable generation. We've been in Ontario for over 50 years. So we have a great relationship not only with the communities that surround us, but also with the unions that support us. Right? You know, we have over 10,000 unionized members in the province working for us as well. So we have a good relationship that way. Also in Canada, we have regulations that we're working towards, or goals that we're working towards to lower our carbon emissions. And nuclear is playing a big role in that. We went in the province of Ontario from over 50 smog days in the city of Toronto down to 0 after nuclear played a big role in phasing out coal. And so the Canadian public is quite proud of our nuclear history, and they're also happy that we're providing that generation at 30% below the average price. Well, the great thing is in a country, if you have sustainable baseload generation at an affordable price, it will attract new business and allow you to be competitive with other countries or other states and provinces. And so it's really important that we have nuclear providing baseload at an affordable price. Over and above the core benefits of low-priced, safe, reliable generation for the province of Ontario, nuclear also has other benefits, right? First of all, we're emission-free, so that goes a long way for the air quality in Ontario. And also, we have the ability to produce cobalt-60 in our reactors, and that is being used for medical isotopes, which is used to fight cancer and sterilize medical equipment. And so, you know, for the people of Ontario and the broader planet, we are doing great things. Nuclear can do more than just generate electricity.
Even in Fukushima, you know, the Japanese have always been very good at designing, at the seismic design. Fukushima, the seismic impact on the plant was nothing, minimal, nothing. It was a tsunami that destroyed everything. So it can't be done. I mean, if you're serious about it. There were big mistakes made in Fukushima, you know, having the diesels at the bottom and so on, because they didn't consider the tsunami. But in terms of seismic, I think it performed remarkably well. And that was a very strong earthquake. The fact that it happened in Japan, which is a very technologically advanced country, enhanced this perception, because if it can happen in Japan, can you imagine how it can happen in other countries that are not as technologically advanced? So perceptions is a major issue here. And I must say that communication to the public is very critical to perceptions. To say that a plant is safe is black and white, but the safety is not black and white. So if you say that the risk is such and such and is very low, it's compared with other risks that as a society we are subjected to, I think this is a more accurate way to communicate, and it avoids absolute statements like, you know, it's safe, because when there is an accident, then of course you lose all your credibility. And the problem with credibility is that you can lose it like that in a second, but it takes years to build it up. So in my mind, using a better language to communicate with the public would be a good step forward. I'm not claiming that once you start talking about risks, all the concerns will go away. No, I'm not saying that. But I think it's a good first step to be more precise and accurate. And the role of the Nuclear Risk Research Center is to do research to improve the risk assessments of Japanese plants, especially in the areas of external hazards, because we all know you have typhoons, you have earthquakes, you have volcanoes. So we're building models, we have scientists and contractors, and we're doing that. In America, we are a bit more formal. We have a lot of rules and regulations in the books, and we tell people how to use risk information. In Western Europe and the United States, there is a lot of significant utilization of risk information. Unfortunately, in Asian countries, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure about the risk information. I mean, if you talk to people, they say, oh yeah, of course. But I don't know. If you look at the regulations, they seem to me to be, again, the old, detailed, bottom kind of regulations. And that's what we're trying to change in Japan.
香港公众对那个核方面这个安全这个担忧其实是很少的，一直到那个2011年，大家都知道这个福岛核事故以后，重新引起这个居民的这个核安全这个担忧。可以说，大家都知道香港这个土地是很贵重的这个资源，到底我们香港一个所谓1000平方公里这个地方，到底有多少土地能拿出来做这个风电能？ 到底有多少土地能拿出来做那个太阳能？我觉得这个问题大家应该要认识到，这一方面的资源，其实在香港、在台湾来说，可能是很有限。但是我们对那个电力的需求，其实一直都在增加。就算是香港这么成熟的这个经济，我们已经没有太多的这个制造业了。一般都是我们商业跟居民的用电，但是我们每年其实还是有这个电力供应的这个需求这个增长。到底我们将来怎么满足大家对电力需求的这个增长？我觉得核能这个是一个选择题，不是一个是非题。所谓是非题，就是大家用不用核能？ 选择题其实是把那个核能放在一个电力供应方面来考量，就是一个环保，一个是稳定，一个是那个经济，这三面进行比较，最后做一个选择。
If we don't use nuclear, what do we use? We can have a choice: hook up to the China power grid, get power from China with unknown sources. People keep thinking that they can just buy power from hydro, they can buy power from natural gas. You don't really know what that power coming from. Once you hook up to the grid, that power, you cannot say, I want this electron, I do not want that electron. Once a nuclear power plant hook up to the grid, it makes it a big pool. It's like you go to a water reservoir, you drink a cup of water, you don't know whether it comes from that mountain or this mountain. It's a big pool. If we don't use nuclear, what are our choices? We immediately see that power bill will go up because nuclear so far is still relatively cheaper. We will see that pollution is not going to be controlled. We'll see we have more carbon dioxide coming out. So when people try to fight global warming, they will have a difficult time. Can we increase nuclear power? Very difficult, because China is also very power hungry. Right now, they're about 2 to 3% of power generated in China using nuclear. A typical developed country like US and other will be about 20%. So there are a lot of room for China to absorb more nuclear or more energy sources. Or the trade-off would be less coal, less dirty burning fuel, fossil fuel, so that you can have clean burning nuclear to come up with. People have fear. What if this, what if that? What if you have another accident in China? That's just fear. What we should do is collect this fear into energy, using this energy to help everybody to run a safer power plant, rather than ban them. For a safer power plant, any given day is much better than a coal-fired plant because it has zero carbon emission. If we can put our energy, physical energy, mental energy, into making a power plant running more safe, it's a lot better than just condemn it. Because people do not understand that even though you shut down a power plant today, it still have to run in the next 10, 20 years because of decay issue. You can ask why we do that. It's a decision made years ago. We cannot change that now. What we can do is make it safer. So if you look at the new 3rd generation, 4th generation nuclear power plant, it should be safer than 2nd generation, which is what Fukushima is. Will there be no accident? Nobody can say. We know that. Anything, any man-built system will go wrong. It's just Murphy's Law. What we can do is find out the risk of it, try to control it to a manageable level so they're significantly lower than any alternatives. So that's what nuclear power in the future is going to be. We could have buy more energy from China, including nuclear, by dedicated plant. We can pay to a power plant and say, this is how much I'm going to pay you. That's what we do with Daya Bay. 50% of the power generated there will come from, go to Hong Kong with dedicated line. But that, depending on where can we get the second power base, can we have a dedicated line? If not, we buy power from the grid. And we cannot tell where it's coming from.
To cope with the unlikely event of a nuclear incident or accident at nuclear power stations in Daya Bay over Guangdong, the Hong Kong government has prepared a comprehensive Daya Bay contingency plan. And the plan was first issued in 1994. It sets out the emergency measures to be taken in Hong Kong in the case of nuclear emergencies. And it stipulates the roles and responsibilities of relevant government bureau and departments in the emergency response structure. And the plan has been made available to the public and is made available on the dbcp.gov.hk website. Yeah, we have developed an accident consequence assessment system, and it comprises different components inside the system. And of course, to deal with the urgent emergency, we have pre-run. We have a dispersion model to estimate or to project in case there is a radioactive plume, and then how long will it reach Hong Kong, and also the extent of the plume, and also because the observatory knows the meteorological condition well. We are also doing weather forecast, and it actually it facilitates our work very much on the dispersion part. And we pre-run the model, and we under different weather situations, like different atmospheric stability, wind directions, and wind speed. We pre-run the sort of case under different assumed source terms from the nuclear power plants, and then we have a set of pre-run maps for our reference, and then we will use the information in the very early, in the urgent phase of the scenario. Although any nuclear incident or accident is unlikely, but we will do the preparedness, the nuclear emergency preparedness at the normal times very seriously. And in the development of the, in the dispersion model, we also operate the system if we know of the source term information, and then we will run the system again in real time, and we will have the results within about 10 minutes or so. And then based on the results, we will discuss with the Department of Health about the projected dose, and then to discuss with them on whether any necessary countermeasures need to be given to the Security Bureau and advice. We will also have a very close liaison with electrical and mechanical engineering services, because they will provide us the assessment of the nuclear power plants, based on the information they obtain, and then we'll assess the radiological situation. And then given we've already have a good idea about the meteorological condition in Hong Kong, and then we will combine the information to make an assessment. Basically, we will project the effective dose, and also the equivalent dose in thyroid for the first 7 days. And according to the generic criteria, we will give necessary advice on countermeasures, for example, evacuation, sheltering, or even thyroid blocking. And as for the health impacts, we will also get views from the Department of Health before we give the recommendations to the Security Bureau.
So, of course, U.S. was one of the first countries to use a lot of nuclear energy, and they have like 100 reactors. And for U.S., nuclear energy is the largest low-carbon energy source they have. So nuclear energy have a very low footprint, economic, sort of environmentally, and also is good for health and the climate, and they're not paid for that. But then they are trying to make these reactors go longer. They have, and they are expanding the operating time from 40 to 50 to 60, and even many of the reactors now have a license for 60 years, and even now they're starting to have a license for 80 years in order to use this asset, which is very important for US. France is also an interesting example because they built more or less in the 70s, 80s, they built their whole nuclear program, more or less 55 reactors, and by doing so they were able to reduce emissions and dependence on oil and gas. So they have a very clean electricity system with 75% of the electricity coming from nuclear. That means very clean and very reliable. And you were interested in Sweden as well? And Sweden I like to mention especially because I'm also Swedish, coming from Sweden, so then I know a lot about this country. Sweden were also very good in building its reactors in the 60s, 70s. Especially in the 70s, and the last reactor starting around 83, 84, I think it was. And then there was a referendum, and people were worried about, had concerns about the safety and so on, and there was a referendum to phase out, but that has been taken away. So the phase out decision is taken away, and the reactors should be used the possible sort of lifetime they have. I would say, first of all, the Swedish people are very practical and pragmatic, so they say if we have reactors, we shall use them. We shall not close them too early, so they should be serving the society. And then also if you ask the people, do you think we should phase out or build new reactors? It's more people who think we should build new reactors than to phase out. So I would say there is quite a stable, positive support for nuclear, and especially around the nuclear plants there is a very good support for nuclear energy. We see that all around the world, that the closer you come to a nuclear plant where people have more information and more access to what's ongoing and understands more, they are more positive to the use of nuclear energy. I think there's two big trends. One is that electricity is so important and so much needed that the consumption of electricity goes up in the world all the time, and we still have hundreds of millions of people who do not have any access to electricity. So the consumption will increase, and more people need to have electricity for better life, better quality of life. And the other trend is to reduce the emissions, and that is especially from the CO2 and the fossil fuels. So this is the other trend where the United Nations together we have this agreement, the Paris Agreement, and the commitment from states to really reduce emissions. So increased use of electricity, but with less emissions. And that's where you have to go to a cleaner energy mix. And in many countries you put a lot of efforts into wind and solar, and you need to do that, but also nuclear, because without nuclear there will not be a solution to climate change. Nuclear helps enable the other energies, low energy sources, low carbon sources like wind and solar. So you need to build a system that is reliable, and then nuclear has a key role to play. it was great because I met a lot of people here in Taiwan and the people who are working at the nuclear plants. I see that your system with building very good reactors, as well as having a good system, you have a regulator supervising the operations, and then of course the operator and the people, and all the people I met was very skilled, very professional and very motivated. So I thought it was a really good system and a very good future for Taiwan.
Had interactions with many countries around the world, countries that are not necessarily members of the NEA, but we have another organization we work with called the International Framework for Nuclear Energy Cooperation, IFNEC, and that includes a lot of countries that are embarking on nuclear. And that includes countries in Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa, and also in Central America that are interested in developing nuclear capabilities. And these countries are taking really substantive steps towards making that happen. So I think that we're going to see more and more nuclear plants around the world, and I think that it's going to be a very important development for many countries. That is not instead of using renewables. I think renewables are going to be a very important energy source in the long-term future. But I think we're going to see a situation where nuclear and renewables work together. Well, I think that every country has to make a decision for what's best for its public and its particular energy situation. And in Japan, they have obviously concluded that nuclear power is part of their energy future. I know that in Japan they're very concerned about climate change and they want to reduce CO2 emissions, and they say nuclear power is part of that. That doesn't mean every country has to build nuclear power plants or operate nuclear power plants, and many places around the world have made different choices. As you know, very famously, Germany has decided to phase out its nuclear power plants, but at the same time the UK is building more nuclear power plants. So every country really has to make an independent decision, and my hope is that they will make those decisions with their eyes wide open, using the right analysis to assure that they are looking at the whole picture of energy and understanding the consequences of the decisions they make. Well, when I visited Taipei in the past, I was a commissioner with the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and we had some cooperative activities to help people in that region make sure that they had a very strong regulatory approach. And I was very confident when I visited that the regulator there was very good and was doing a very good job of ensuring nuclear safety. And I think they still do a very good job. And I know that the policies have changed, but I think the Atomic Energy Commission is a very good organization, and whatever the direction is, that they will make sure that things are safe. I'm an optimist about the future. I think the future is going to be a very, very exciting place to be. And I think that Generation 4 technologies could very well be a big part of that future. When I look at the future of nuclear, I believe that there's a very important opportunity to see nuclear evolve to its next step. Not necessarily replacing existing technology immediately, but to go to technologies with even higher levels of safety, with better economics, to deal with nuclear waste in a better way. And I think that's certainly what the TerraPower group has been working towards. They have a very advanced fast neutron technology that doesn't require reprocessing, and they're very excited about this. They've been working with China to move forward with that technology, and we're very interested in watching that happen. If it's successful, it could be one of those game changers that comes along once every once in a while that really just changes the whole way people look at energy supply. So we'll see. I hope it goes well, but there's still a long way to go with that. There's still many steps that need to be taken. But they and other people around the world are developing Gen 4 technologies. There's many companies exploring everything from fast reactors to high temperature gas reactors, molten salt reactors, and they're hoping to bring these things to market. And if even a few of them are successful, they can make a big difference in the future.
We need to run more public education program. We need to produce more outspoken people to tell the general public what nuclear is about. We do not try to paint a rosy picture that it never happened. We should tell people the fact. Things goes wrong, airplane will crash. If it crash, this is what could happen. Power plant may break, it breaks down, this is what can happen, this is what we should do. Do not fear. We need to be able to understand it rather than go against it without knowing what it is about, go blindly against it. We must be able to tell if there's an accident, do not listen to rumors. Listen to the news, listen to what government is telling you, make more educational gas. Roll back from that is today we need to start working with the public. We need to let the stakeholder, the media, the public understand what nuclear is about. Good things, bad things, so they can plan for themselves in case there's a bad accident happened. I think, based on my judgment, is never put everything, all the eggs in one basket. Do not use only one energy source. If you bank on 100% nuclear, no, you're wrong. You bank on 0% nuclear, no, that's not perfect. 100% of anything is not good. So there is no ultimate good fraction. But if you look at most of the developing countries in nuclear is about 15 to 25%. Unless it's like France, purely an export power country, then it might go up to 75%. But I think a healthy country will take advantage of having 15 to 25% of nuclear as their mixed load. Anything more, depending on how your country's education system is, anything less is not meaningful, depending on how big the picture is. There are countries coming out declaring they ban nuclear for life. I would ask, what are the replacements? What are you going to replace it with? What are the downsides? What are you going to replace with? The thing about nuclear is, if you go back to the 50s, they have a thinking that nuclear power will be so cheap that it's so cheap that you cannot even measure. So history proves that they're totally wrong. It's getting quite expensive now. Fission is one way of producing energy from nuclear. Everybody is thinking this is an intermediate step, but it has been intermediate step for years. Fusion is the next generation, but fusion is always 30 years away. That statement is in the 70s, and now we're still talking about 20, 30 years away. If we can put more energy or resources into making fusion, that would be the next step. Fusion itself is also nuclear related. Zero contamination. If it goes wrong, so far theoretically, no release of radioactive substance. So that is pretty much the future.